Super Rugby, the Saturday games, we should at least see one. Whether or not we see the first one kind of remains to be seen, with New Zealand's lockdown affecting all things and potentially the rugby as well. But two games on: Highlanders Hurricanes and then Reds against the Rebels from Australia. Let's start with the first one. Highlanders Hurricanes, and yeah, like I said, it may not go ahead, it may get cancelled, but I would say, if anything, it should go ahead, hopefully, with potentially no crowd there, or a very, very limited crowd. Essentially, since a few new COVID cases here in New Zealand, the country has gone into different levels of lockdown depending on where you're at. A stricter lockdown here in Auckland, where most of the cases are, and a slightly more relaxed lockdown in Dunedin, where that game's going to be played, and the rest of the country, but it still limits large gatherings, of which rugby will be one. So, yeah, the game, I would say, will probably still go ahead, and I would say likely they will have no crowd in attendance, which is kind of unfortunate. And a lot of you guys have mentioned it's been one of the kind of major draws when comparing Super Rugby AU and Super Rugby Aotearoa. The fact that there's a crowd there makes a big difference. It just makes it a lot easier on the eye to watch those games. So, yeah, it's a game if it does go ahead, which doesn't mean a lot in terms of the log, because the Highlanders are going to finish second from bottom above the Chiefs. The Hurricanes will either finish second or third, and nobody can win it apart from the Crusaders, who've already got and damaged the trophy, apparently. People have been quite hard on the Crusaders, but I should say lots of trophies have been damaged in the past. And generally, when guys win a championship, they're probably going to get on the booze. So a lot worse has probably been done. It's just the fact that that trophy wasn't a piece of metal makes it just seem, I think, probably a bit worse. Obviously, the guys should take better care of it, but I'm just saying they're not by any means the first people to damage or maybe not show the same respect to a trophy that they should have. But they won it, so good on them for that, if nothing else. The Highlanders lineup, it seems pretty stable. Johnston, Dixon, Tokalahi's front row, Parkinson, Wetton, second row, and Frizzell, Hunt, and Mikaeli Tu'u are your four pack. And they've been good, man. They haven't definitely got all the biggest names, but I mean, I know Pari Parkinson's certainly one guy who's putting his hand up. Frizzell's potentially been the best six in the competition. From New Zealand, Dylan Hunt, I had felt to be underperforming a wee bit, but certainly put in a massive shift last week. And Mikaeli Tu'u was probably a bit more menacing in the opening rounds, has been kind of contained a wee bit. Maybe oppositions have been doing a bit more work on keeping him quiet, but he's still been really good. Aaron Smith's probably been the best 9 of the competition. Josh Ioane, now that he's back playing 10, is also, man, like last week, he was really running the show, man. I thought he was really good. It's just unfortunate he was on a losing team. Tompkinson, Collins, midfield, Mackay and Nadeki, I think, are probably the two best wingers in the Highlanders side. And Mitch Hunt is there at fullback. So it's a pretty good-looking side for the Hurricanes. And I think the Hurricanes coach has come out and said, like, if the game gets cancelled, it's not going to be the end of the world. The one name I was looking for on their team sheet was potentially Julian Savia, but there's only one Savia in the squad, and his name is Adi, so he's there at number 8. Karifi and Princev are the other two. Lucy's, Scrafton, and Blackwell are your locking duo. And kind of like the Highlanders, they don't have a big name guy like a Whitelock or a Tuipulotu or a Retallick, but I think definitely Parkinson and Blackwell have been two of the standouts from New Zealand, and then Wetton and Scrafton in recent weeks have been better as well. Lomax, Dane Coles, and Ben May are the front row. I still think Lomax needs to be better. His signing from the Highlanders was actually seen as a real coup for the Hurricanes, but I don't know that we've quite seen the best of him as yet. For the backs, you got Jamie Booth and Garden Bishop, so there's no Perenata for this one. I think he's played every minute up until now, so it's about time he gets a break anyway. Umaga, Jensen, and Proctor, that's a pretty young midfield. Husson and Aso are your wingers, with Geordie Barrett there at fullback. So, yeah, like I said, there's no Julian Savia, which is a pity, but it looks like Despite all the excitement of potentially going to get to see Nihi Milner-Skudder, I should have mentioned him, he's not there, Dan Carter and Julian Savia, it seems like none of those wishes will come true. Fun Fake's not available. I think he was suspended after that last game, which they ruled would have been a red card. So, yeah, interestingly, away from home, the Hurricanes are the favourites with the bookies by 1 point, and the Hurricanes are also the favourites with Rugby Forecast algorithm by 5 points. So we will see how that game goes, if it goes ahead, and if there's a crowd. Let's just hope it goes ahead. But anyway, we will wait and see for that one. The next game is the Reds and the Rebels. Mixed fortunes for both of these teams. I think the Reds did not have a very good week last week. They got an absolute hammering, a better second half. But what did they concede? Like 35, 38 points or something in that first half? They were just a revolving door against the Waratahs. It was disgraceful stuff, and I'm sure Brad Thorne would have been livid. As I said, they were better in the second half, but too little too late. And the Rebels have kind of got their act together. They're sitting at 3 wins, a loss, and a draw at the moment. So actually, in a decent position. Whereas they looked not the best at the start. And remember, this is the Rebels team, which is without some of their players who are still trapped in Victoria. I think like Ross Halett-Petty and Aotearoa and others. So, yeah, they're having to make do, the Rebels. But Lowrens is, remember, gone for the season. So, it's not been the easiest time for them. But they are still managing to do all right. So I'm kind of glad to see that Dave Vessels seems to be getting the formula right. The Reds probably need a big win here. Maybe not even just a big one, just a win. They'll take a win, whereas the Rebels, they definitely want to win as well. You don't go into a game looking to lose, but I don't think they would be as adversely affected if they were to drop this one. It is being played at Suncorp. The Reds lineup looks also relatively stable. I don't think that that the axe has swung too hard for the Reds. Straka is there at loose head, so he is a change. Paenga-Mosa is a hooker, and Tupou is there at number 3. Tupou's spot virtually never changes, and he plays almost 80 minutes every week. Blythe and Salakaia-Loto second row. Liam Wright, McCrate, and Harry Wilson are your back row. And the back row has still, I think, been the most enjoyable part of the Reds game to watch this AU season. Likewise, Tate McDermott is back in the number 9 jersey. He, especially in those first few rounds, was absolutely electric. For the last 2 rounds, he's been on the bench. But he's back in the 9 jersey, so I'm pretty happy to see him there. James O'Connor, I think, is getting better as well in that 10 jersey. He's starting to look more fluid, so it's good to see him stepping up, like I mentioned. Stuart Paisami midfield, Petaya, who's back after a bit of bereavement leave last week. Dalgunu are the wings, and Jock Campbell. So it's a pretty attacking-looking back 3 as well. Hegarty is on the bench. Scott Young is on the bench. And, for the Rebels, they've also shifted things around a bit. Cameron Orr is still a loose head, and he's been really good. He's been good scrummaging, and he's been good around the park. Ulysses is hooker, and Fa'am Musili is there at tight head, and he is probably everybody's favourite prop to watch this season in the AU competition. Like, you'd think it was Tupou, like nicknamed the Tongan Thor, with all his schoolboy antics in terms of being able to run big lines and smash dudes over. That's been Fa'am Musili from the Rebels 100%. So if you haven't been watching Rebels games, it's worth watching to watch that guy, because when he gets the ball and there's 10 meters between him and the opposition, he is just going to put the hammer down and run straight at who's ever in his way. Hopefully it's like a small back, but anyway. Philip and Hosea are the second row, and I've been impressed by both of those guys. Kemeny Wilkin and Naisarani. Naisarani's probably been the star of the show since he's come back from injury. I think he led them in run meters last week for the whole team. Like, it's usually the fullback, but it was your number 8. Lomani and Deegan are 9 and 10. I think Deegan helped out at 10 because that allowed Tamua to switch to 12, where he seems to play a bit better, and he is at 12 this week. Magnay's at 13. Callaway and Kotobetsi are the wings, and Reese Hodge, Mr. Versatile, he's still at 15, doesn't drop. Billy Meeks is still riding the pine alongside Jade's Tuttle, so those guys are the whole backs. cover, and the rest of the guys on the bench are your forwards like Hardwick, like Michael Wells, and co. The bookies for this one, I got the Reds as 3-point favourites. You would have to say their home advantage rather than their recent form is probably the reason for that, because, yeah, last week was a bit of a shocker. And interestingly, Rugby Forecast algorithm has got the Reds by 9 points. I think Reds would definitely take a 9-point win over the Rebels at this point. But, yeah, we'll see how things go. It makes things look pretty interesting. This weekend, I would ordinarily also be looking up the Crusaders and Blues lineups for the Sunday game, but I think the New Zealand government's going to make an announcement about the lockdown levels and how that's going to affect things, and then the Blues are going to make an announcement after that for what's happening with Eden Park for the Sunday game. I reckon it'll be cancelled, but we'll wait and see if they decide they can do it any other way, because level 3 lockdown here means the players can't even train together. So it's a bit of an awkward one. But yeah, so I'll hold off on the Blues and Crusaders preview for now. But for the Saturday games, fingers crossed we get 2 from 2. You guys let me know your thoughts, how you think these ones are going to go. And I will talk to you soon. See you later.